the next Zelda game is going to be released soon, titled Cadence of Hyrule. It's a rhythm-based dungeon crawler, and the game has attracted some attention for being made by indie developers who've borrowed the Zelda IP. Now, this is interesting in and of itself, because Nintendo is particularly stingy in lending their IPs, let alone to indie developers. Though this is mainly interesting for what precedent it could set for the future, and that's what I'd like to talk about today. Sure, this is quite an interesting game to see on its own, though I think the main significance of Cadence of Hyrule is that it's a glimpse into a future where IP sharing like this is a regular occurrence. What kind of game could arise if there were an official Metroid indie game, for example? Imagine all the new possible gameplay mechanics and settings, or even music and art styles envisioned from the imagination of indie developers. How would an indie game turn out if it were made around the Pokemon series or F-Zero series? Probably quite interesting. And that could be said for practically any game series. Whenever you get a new set of eyes to consider how to develop the conventions of a game series, there will likely be some significant changes, potentially helping the series develop as a whole, and it's possible, though unclear, how likely that we could see some sort of new ideas in Cadence of Hyrule that inspire future Zelda games. The best example of this in recent memory is Sonic Mania. Indie developers who were passionate about the Sonic series were given the opportunity to make an official fan game, and as far as the general consensus is concerned, it was a success. Now, it's too early to say how much of an impact it had on the series as a whole, though I'd struggle to say it'll have none. And if more indie developers were offered to handle more IPs, there'd be more opportunities to experiment with the designs of the game series. The whole concept of outside developers changing up established formulas has even already occurred in the Zelda series with Hyrule Warriors. And though it didn't appear to have much of a lasting effect on the series, it was still a unique take on the formula to experience while waiting for Breath of the Wild. Of course, what's great about getting help from indie developers is that they're their own development team. That is to say, whatever they're working on doesn't interject with what the game series' main development team is working on, so overall you get more games in the series. Although Breath of the Wild was released in 2017, we're already getting 2 games this year. And it's clear that there are plenty of other game series that could benefit from more releases, such as maybe Kid Icarus, for example. And the fact that that game series has changed up a lot in the last installment leaves a lot of development open for potential indie developers. Speaking of the indie developers, they also get exposure from working with larger companies. I know that if Cadence of Hyrule was just another generic indie dungeon crawler, I would have absolutely no interest in it, though now I'm actually excited for it. And depending on what genre of game the indie developers specialize in, people might actually be convinced to try a new genre because it features a game series they like. This exposure also draws attention to other indie developers who don't have a recognizable IP to attract attention. I'm pretty sure most people weren't very interested in the last indie showcase. Though now that Cadence of Hyrule was revealed, those same people are probably at least a little more interested in the next one, knowing that new games in their favorite series could be revealed. And even if they don't get what they want, that curiosity could lead them to see other indie games they might find interesting. And I'd find it hard to believe Nintendo didn't consider this when lending their IP. I mean, a major portion of their sales on the eShop are from indie games. So any win for indie developers as a whole is also a win for Nintendo. Of course, this entire time I've avoided talking about the most obvious benefit of using established IPs, being less time spent on designing assets. Depending on what assets are needed, making an original IP could require more staff, more development time, or generally just less work being put into aspects of the game that actually need it, mainly gameplay. With Cadence of Hyrule, much of the universe, characters, lore, and music has already been established, so the ability to save development time like this could go a long way in minimizing development time and maximizing game quality. Overall, I think there's a lot of potential in this IP lending model, as it has significant benefits for all parties involved, including the gamers. And I think Nintendo particularly can gain a lot of benefits from continuing this model. Otherwise, that's all I have to say, so thanks for watching.